Today, we will talk again about the ghost ship called Kaz II. Its difference from previous stories is that this is the most recent. And it happened relatively recently, in the 2007 year. The story is real and well documented. So now you can't blame me for making up the story. However, in the presence of all modern technologies, it is still not possible to find out all the reasons and circumstances of what happened. But we are going to try to solve this mystery. Don't switch. The most interesting thing is at the end. This is a 10-meter catamaran yacht. On the 15th of April, 2007 year, she set off from Airlie Beach and headed to the first point of her route to Townsville, Queensland, Australia. The purpose of the route was to go around northern Australia. The end point was the state of Western Australia. There were 3 people on board the yacht. 56-year-old Derek Button, 69-year-old James Tunstith, and 63-year-old Peter Tunstith. All residents of Perth, Western Australia. All the crew members were not experienced sailors, although skipper Derek Button took navigation courses and twice went around the islands off Edie. The first oddities began to appear on April 18, when a helicopter found a drifting Kaz II in the Great Barrier Reef area. There were signs that the crew was in distress. On the 20th of April, a marine patrol landed on board the yacht, which did not find any of the crew members on it. Moreover, no traces of a possible accident of one kind or another were also found. In a statement made on the day of disembarkation, officials from the Queensland Office of Emergency Management said the ship was in good condition. Everything is arranged on it as if the crew is still on board. Food and cutlery were on the table. The laptop was turned on, and the yacht's engine was running. It looked as if the crew had suddenly disappeared from the yacht for unknown reasons. It was also confirmed that all the yacht's emergency systems, including the radio station and GPS, were in good condition. At the same time, all the life jackets were in their places. A boat was fixed to the stern, and the anchor was raised. Apart from the disappearance of the crew, there was only one strange thing. One of the sails of the boat was badly torn. In addition, there was no life raft on board. Although, on the other hand, it is unknown whether this fruit existed. On Friday, the 20th of April, the Kaz II was towed to the port of Townsville for forensic examination. On the 21st of April, the police who examined the yacht did not find any signs of the possible presence of third parties on it. They found that there was no mess in the cabin, except for some magazines, scraps of newspaper, and a keg of wine that were lying on the floor. It was later determined that these items were on the floor during the towing of the vessel to the port. There were several butter knives in the sink, and plastic sheaths of fishing knives were found on a bench in the galley. Apparently, they have not been used recently. Under the bed of the loaf, in a sealed container, investigators found a pistol and ammunition for it. Pistol's ammunition lay untouched. A separate bullet of the same caliber was also found in the box. After analyzing the GPS data on the course of Kaz II, it turned out that on the morning of April 15th, immediately after the departure of the yacht from Airlie Beach, it was controllable and went on the intended course. Soon it deviated from it in a northeasterly direction, heading to a section of the sea where the weather worsened that day. Later in the evening of the same day, according to the same data, the yacht ceased to be controllable. Also on board was found a video dated April 15th, 10:05 in the morning. And, apparently, it was taken just before the disappearance of the crew. This video shows Button at the helm, Peter fishing on the stern of the yacht. A long white rope is unwound on the stern of the yacht. The yacht's engine is stopped. Fenders are suspended from both sides of the yacht. Peter is wearing a shirt and glasses, which were later found on the deck of the yacht in another place. None of the team members are wearing life jackets, although the sea looks very choppy. The camera rotates 360 degrees, as a result of which the islands surrounding the yacht fall into the frame. This will allow the investigation to accurately determine her location at the time of the shooting. Search and rescue operations began on Wednesday, the 18th of April. The Australian Search and Rescue Service sent a Royal Navy aircraft to search for the missing in the area of the yacht's discovery. At the same time, a detachment of volunteers joined the search, who conducted searches on the coast and adjacent islands. At night, an aircraft equipped with infrared radiation devices was used to search the reefs. The next day, a full-scale search was launched involving volunteers from several cities, as well as the Townsville Coast Guard. 2 rescue helicopters, 9 aircraft, and 2 commercial vessels. To narrow down the search area, GPS system data was extracted and analyzed. A consultation was held with a doctor, who said that if the men are still in the water, then the probability of finding them alive is very low. Search teams continued to search in the hope that the men managed to reach land. The search in the air and on the water was completed on the 21st of April at 16:00. Searches on the coastline were launched on Monday, April 23rd, after receiving additional information. However, on the 25th of April, these searches were curtailed, as they were deemed fruitless. On the 4th of August, 2008 a year after the mysterious disappearance of the crew of the Kaz II, an inquest began in the Townsville court. The inquest was conducted by Queensland coroner Michael Barnes. He focused on whether the men were dead, on the circumstances that led to their disappearance, and on whether their search was properly organized. The testimony of 27 witnesses was heard. Some of them saw the yacht during its fateful journey and helped the authorities reconstruct the events. At one of the hearings, Derek Button's wife Jennifer said that her husband had been very carefully preparing for this trip before, that he had already gone to Kaz II twice and both times were perfect. The original plan was to travel to the port city of Fremantle in Western Australia as part of 2 people. But Button was worried that it was not safe to go on such a trip together. So he decided to invite his neighbors with him, brothers Peter and James Thand. They had been planning their trip for several months, plotting routes on the computer every day and discussing them. Initially, they expected that the trip would take from 6 to 8 weeks. They did not plan to sail far from the shore. Although Button took medications to lower cholesterol, diabetes, and suffered a heart attack at the age of 50, his wife knew that he was ready for such a journey. Graham Douglas, the previous owner of Kaz II, assured that at the time of sale, the yacht was in excellent condition. The night before he sailed, he met with these men. He also helped them plan part of the route, and was very surprised to learn that the men deviated from the route programmed in their navigation system. Gavin Howland, the skipper of the Gillian fishing vessel, reported that on April 16, 2000, he and his crew saw a white yacht with a torn sail drifting sideways between the reefs at a speed of 3 knots, about 5.5 kilometers per hour. She drifted with the current in a north-northeast direction. The sailors approached the yacht at a distance of 50 meters, but they did not notice anyone on board. This happened 2 days before Kaz II was spotted by the Coast Guard. It seemed strange to Holland that the sailing boat was in an area known for its shallow water and rocks. He did not attempt to contact the yacht's crew or the authorities. It had never occurred to him that the yacht's crew could suffer disasters. And he said that there are rules for him at sea never to approach other vessels. The police, who were the first to inspect the yacht, suspect that there could have been a crime scene. The police combed the yacht for signs of a struggle, but found no evidence that there were strangers on board. The police concluded that the yacht itself was not a crime scene. When Peter Tunsted's widow asked the police why they didn't check fingerprints on the ship, she was informed that this was not necessary, since no signs of a struggle were found inside. The police found a video camera on board the yacht. There was a record of 3 crew members on the morning before the disappearance. When this video was played in the courtroom, the detective explained that the land plots caught on the video helped the police narrow down the search area for missing crew members. The state coroner confirmed in his official report that he could not determine the circumstances that led to the men's deaths. However, based on the testimony of witnesses, the videos found on board, and the condition of the yacht, the official version of what happened reads as follows: on Sunday, April 15, 2007 year, at 10 o'clock in the morning, the yacht was in the George Point area. Up to this point, everything was going according to plan. But in the next hour, the situation changed dramatically. The men pulled a white rope behind the yacht and tied it to the bow of the yacht, perhaps for drying. For unknown reasons, James Tunstall took off his t-shirt and glasses and put them in the back seat. The report says that the man caught on the spinner, the other tried to free him and fell overboard. Standing on the rear platform of the yacht, it is easy to fall into the water while the vessel is moving. At the same time, it is almost impossible to get back on board. Then the second brother also dived into the water to pull the first one out. At this time, Button, who was still on board, started the engine and realized that he needed to lower the sails before he could return with his friends. When Derek Button let go of the steering wheel to take care of the sails, deviations of the yacht's course or wind direction could lead to a tilt of the vessel, which caused the boom to move the lower beam to which the sail is attached and pushed Derek overboard. Before that, Derek probably tried to throw his comrades into a lifeline. This is evidenced by a blue coffee mug, which was found next to the life buoy. Since the yacht was moving downwind at a speed of 15 knots, which is about 28 kilometers per hour, she quickly became inaccessible to those who were overboard. The report says that from that moment on, the men had to live in a matter of seconds. None of them were good swimmers, and the sea was rough. The men quickly got tired and drowned. However, along with this, the official report does not exclude the possibility of a crime and a staged disappearance. In addition to the official version of the team's disappearance, several alternative theories have been put forward. According to the Townsville authorities, the weather was windy and the sea was choppy. Perhaps the yacht was covered by a huge wave, and by chance people fell overboard. It is difficult to believe in this theory that all the things on board were safe and sound. Relatives of the missing men say the condition of the boat makes this version unlikely and point to some inconsistency for bad weather. For example, the men were lightly dressed, and their life jackets were in their places untouched. An interesting fact was that the fenders of the yacht were released. Special devices that reduced the load on the sides of the vessel when mooring it. This led to suggestions that the yacht could dock with another vessel, and the Kaz II crew voluntarily or forcibly boarded that second vessel. In response to these suggestions, the Townsville police stated that small vessels usually leave the fenders down. which makes it impossible to judge this version unambiguously. In addition, the coroner's report notes that witnesses saw that the fenders were lowered when the ship left the pier. It is said that Button bought a Kaz II a year before the incident and has sailed on it a couple of times since then. The Tanshides were also not new to navigation, as they had been sailing together since they were 18, and even worked in the radio rooms of the Volunteer Rescue Service at sea. The last known contact of family members with any of the crew members occurred an hour and a half after the ship left the port, when one of the crew members was contacted by his wife. The radio operator recorded a radio transmission failure on the day of its departure, April 15th at 1845. The team indicated their location at George Point. The woman said that in a good way, the journey from Airlie Beach to George Point should have taken them a maximum of 2.5 hours. It remains unclear why they sailed there for so long. As one of the explanations, it is noted that the men were just fishing. There is another explanation: a malfunction of the navigation system. It became known that initially the men planned to start their journey not on the 15th, but on the 14th of April. But they had to postpone the date due to a malfunction of the GPS system. The problem was not critical. Everything happened because of the user. Therefore, the trip could be planned for the next day. Another suggestion is that the yacht ran aground near George Point. When the men jumped overboard to push her out, the wind blew, and the yacht sailed away by itself. This explains the appearance of towels on the deck. There is also a version that one of the crew members was hit by a killer wave, and the rest died trying to save him.